It's January 10th, 2020, and this is episode 12 of Film Club Podcast. I'm your host, Chris. This week, as in every week, we are reviewing 3 different movies, having a little discussion about each one of them. I will just be talking about how I felt about each film, and that is pretty much a synopsis of the show. Last week, I did 3 very good pictures. One of them from 2013, Prisoners, and then 2 2019 movies. So I was just kind of wrapping up the recent year that just ended, and I was able to watch some pretty good films. So if you are able to check out episode 11 or some of the more recent episodes, please do so. Tell me what you feel. So today we are going to do something that I have done previously on the show, and that is to compare 2 films by the same director, or in this case, directors. I did it with Ari Aster's films, Hereditary and Midsommar. I did it with Robert Eggers' films, which is The Witch and The Lighthouse. So today we are going to be exploring the Safdie brothers, Josh and Benny Safdie, who of course directed the 2019 film that everyone seems to be talking about right now, Uncut Gems, or maybe they were talking about a few weeks ago. I might be a little behind here as far as when things come out, but I'm not sure how recently this came out. So yes, we're going to be talking about Uncut Gems. And we are also going to be talking about their 2017 film, Josh and Benny Safdie. Robert Pattinson and Benny Safdie star in this film, Good Time, which came out in 2017. So I'm actually going to talk about them in the order that I saw them, which is Uncut Gems first, and then Good Time. And then to end the podcast, I'm going to have another review of a movie from 2013, and that is Under the Skin, with Scarlett Johansson and a bunch of Swedish people, or wherever that movie takes place. So that is basically the breakdown of today, and I guess we can get started without any further information. Just one more thing I wanted to quickly plug is a video essay that I just made on this channel. First time doing something other than this podcast. It's a very quick 5.5 minute video. So if you have seen Mindhunter or Silence of the Lambs, I would recommend you check that out. It's just a little thing that I wrote and edited and put together real quick. So it would be cool if you check that out as well. But I digress. So yes, we're going to do a little back-to-back of the same director, starting with Uncut Gems, which came out in 2019. Uncut Gems is directed by the Safdie brothers and stars the cast of Adam Sandler, Keith William Richards, Lakeith Stanfield, and of course Kevin Garnett is in this film. Sorry, I'm taking long pauses because the cast that I'm viewing on this IMDb page is just weird. Oh, because we're seeing the full cast, and it is starting with a bunch of names that I was not familiar with, because the film opens in Ethiopia in 2010, shortly after flashing to 2012, and we're in the Diamond District of New York, and we're following Adam Sandler's character of Howard, and I gotta say, this movie isn't exactly what I was expecting it to be, which is absolutely fine. I tried to go in these without watching many of the trailers and anything that would potentially spoil it for me, but I really enjoyed this movie, and I pretty much knew while watching what the story was going to unfold, but then it did have a sort of twist at the end, and I was not expecting it, and there was a good shock factor in that. And this film is very high intensity and stress inducing, and it is kind of like a thrill ride, and you kind of go through it, and Adam Sandler does a really, really, really good job in this movie. Not his first uh, entrance into a dramatic role by any means. He's done very good serious films before, uh, Punch Drunk Love, or the one where he's a dying comedian. I forget what the name of that is. Quickly look into his filmography. But Adina Menzel is his wife. She plays a very good role as that. He's kind of in a separated relationship with her, is having an affair with his girlfriend as well, and there's a lot going on with his relationships, but as well there's just a lot going on in his life because of his character. He's very unlikable, but at the same time likable, and I think that's something that after seeing these two films by the Safdie brothers, I feel like there's a connection there where both characters, Adam Sandler's character in this, and I won't skip ahead, but to Robert Pattinson's character in Good Time, we have just a main lead that's unlikable yet like compelling, and you kind of sympathize with them, but at the same time you know it's very wrong to do that, and we will get onto that more so as this review goes on. But Adam Sandler did a great job. I've, being born in 97, grew up in that like sweet spot of watching Mr. Deeds and Happy Gilmore and all those Happy Madison movies, and so it's nice to see Adam Sandler back at it with something very, very successful and not something just mediocre and getting him on vacation somewhere. So, back to Uncut Gems. Really, really cool cinematography in this. We have this like ethereal lights that become the gemstones, and it kind of like fades into many things during the film. I don't know if that makes any sense to anyone if they haven't seen it, but they do this really cool effect in the beginning to set up the shot. One thing that I really noticed was that like the settings feel really lived in, they feel really real. You just feel the atmosphere in this movie a lot, and I appreciate that. It feels very the year it's set in 2012. It feels very 2012. Not that 8 years ago is something like really hard to pull off. Sure, we have things that are from 2012, but just everything feels authentic to what they are trying to accomplish as far as the settings, and I appreciate that a lot. It does help you dive into the movie and kind of immerse yourself. So, as far as the plot goes for this movie, it's all over the place, but intentionally. There's a lot of things going on, a lot of hands being exchanged. We're talking the Diamond District here. We're talking New York City, so we have a lot of different characters and a lot of side characters and things that are going on, and it's intentionally chaotic, and I really enjoyed that sense of it. Another thing that will go on more into the next review as well, there's a sense of chaos, and there's just like tension in the air. You want to know what's going on next, and this film is there's always somebody knocking at his door, and he's always got like 3 or 4 things that he's juggling at the same time. He's taking calls, he's taking messages while he's talking to other people, and that's just like fun as pace wise to like keep you going. But Lakeith Stanfield, really good in this. Kevin Garnett surprised me of how big his role was in this movie. He's not just someone who appears once in the film, it's a reoccurring thing. And like I said, I did not know the anything about really the movie, just seeing like screenshots basically before I saw this. So cool that it's about a lot of sports betting, and Kevin Garnett is in the film reacting with Howard, Adam Sandler's character, and it's about betting on his games. So really, really, really good movie. Would recommend going to see it in the theater if you can, or you could potentially, if you are in the UK, or if you have a certain VPN service that could make you look like you're in the UK, this will be available on Netflix the 31st of January, which is so soon. So for something that will probably still be in theaters at that time, you could also watch it in your home on Netflix. That is the UK Netflix, I believe. So that's just a little shout out there. That's really cool. So people over the pond there will get to see this movie at the end of the month without having to pay for it. So, yeah, that is Uncut Gems and my review of it. So, we will move on to the second Safdie Brothers film, which is 2017's Good Time, which is an American crime thriller written and directed by the Safdie Brothers, and Ronald Bronstein also wrote it. Robert Pattinson stars in this, and he is alongside Benny Safdie. So not only does he direct it and write it, one of the brothers is also in it. He plays a developmentally disabled person who is basically forced along to rob this bank in the beginning, which is a really, really, really good, like, first act of this movie. I really appreciate that. It kind of drifts off towards, but I'll get to that, I guess. The plot of this is very, very high wire as well, and you kind of see a lot of similarities between these two movies, and I feel like I've said this with the Oster films, and I said this with the Eggers films, and I'm saying this now, which those are everything we're discussing today is A24 produced, or they're distributing company of movies, and their movies tend to be something that I review a lot on this show, and that's something I've mentioned a lot. They're an independent entertainment company that specializes in film distribution and film television production, and I've recently become a liking to them just because the movies that they tend to distribute. They have a lot of really, really good stuff, and so it kind of ends up on the show a lot because they have intriguing movies like The Lighthouse being in completely black and white and in a 1:1 by very squared aspect ratio. Not gonna pretend to know my film specifics there, but just out of the box things. So it tends to pique my interest and therefore be on this show. But I digress once again. So back to Good Time. It is very high tension, as in Uncut Gems. We have yet another likable, when he shouldn't be, character played by Robert Pattinson this time, who does a fantastic job. He's not someone who I would, in the early stages of his career, think that he would go on to do such good roles. I loved his performance in The Lighthouse, whether or not I like that film. I'm still thinking about it, which is a testament to it. So there's that. I know I did give it a recommendation, but that film is not for everyone. I get that, but his performance nonetheless is very, very good, and it is very, very good in this film as well. I think that Benny Safdie does a really, really good job in this film, and it's not easy to pull off the certain role that he does, but he indeed does do it. The girl who plays Crystal, the guy who plays Dash, there's a lot of really solid performances in here of people that I don't know as well, is what I'm saying here. So I did like this film. I like the kind of fast-paced energy of it, and the motives of Robert Pattinson's character basically kind of influence and flow through the story. And he's basically desperate and willing to do anything to get his brother out of a bad situation. And that's basically my spoiler-free review of the film. So what I can compare to, and this film's received a lot of good praise. It has a really good score on Rotten Tomatoes and IMDb, so it's of course to be expected that its success had some part to do with Uncut Gems. But with that saying, I did see Uncut Gems first and then saw this movie, and to my personal test, I just prefer Uncut Gems just a tiny bit more, or actually a lot more. I just enjoyed that film overall. It kind of has a more, not supernatural aspect, but there's some interesting stuff going on in Uncut Gems. There's a tiny scene that is very subtle, that when Howard's saying one line, when he first delivered the gem that is worth so much, this prize opal, he opens it up and his eyes shrink as he's looking at it. And it's something that you probably wouldn't even pick up on. It's something that I was hearing about during people's watching, saying something was off about that one scene, and I was not trying to spoil it for myself, but I did notice that as well on my watch. And the scene where Kevin Garnett is looking at the opal, and you kind of see like a lot of very quick images that flash, but there's some supernatural quality, I guess, for lack of a better word, some possessive quality about this stone, and I think that's cool, just like an overall thing. Whereas Good Time is completely grounded in a realistic and gritty story, um, so maybe I just kind of like the more fantastical plot that surrounds Uncut Gems, even though the story is very realistic and gritty in that movie as well. But I just, from my personal taste, it's basically comparing apples to oranges here. They're two very different films. They don't have any connection. Whereas the other directors that I have mentioned numerously already, Oster and Eggers, their films have at least some sort of theory of a loose connection that binds those two films together. But yes, in the sense of their overall directing, the Safdie brothers have a style of writing that they do, and they do it very, very well. Both of these films are executed really well, and they both get my 2 thumbs up, definite recommendation. I do like these 2 movies, and I look forward to seeing more of their projects. So, that concludes my Safdie Brothers rant, I guess. Those 2 movies were from 2017, this one, and 2019 with Uncut Gems. So, to finish off this review, we are actually jumping to 2013 to review the final film of today, which is the science fiction film directed by Jonathan Glazer, with a screenplay written by Glazer. It's based off the 2000 novel of the same name by Michael Faber, and that is Under the Skin, starring Scarlett Johansson, among others. Who else is in this film? I would like to look at the cast real quick because this film is very, very unique in its plot and its execution. And I've heard a lot of different praise about this movie. This film stars Scarlett Johansson, Jeremy McWilliams, Lindsay Taylor McKay, and Dougie McConnell. There's a lot of just different roles of people who are not necessarily actors in this movie. They're just people that were filmed without their knowledge, which sounds very intriguing, and that was something that maybe caught my attention at first too. This is a very artsy, art house kind of film. There's a lot of silence and atmospheric tension in this film. There's a lot of moments where it's just Scarlett Johansson on a black background interacting with different things. And not to say that the film is boring, but the film is, I guess, for lack of a better word, it just didn't hold my attention to the effect that it initially did by the end of it. And maybe it deserves another watch, and maybe I'm just being underwhelmed by this isn't fair, but just to me personally, I didn't really enjoy this movie that much. I liked certain aspects of it, but it just felt hollow to me. And I appreciate what it was trying to do, and I maybe after watching it again would feel different, but as far as it goes right now, and to read the reviews, it's kind of, like I said, anywhere in between. I'm just gonna actually show you and scroll through the reviews while I'm reading them. Amazing, but not for everyone. That makes sense. Somebody wrote, superb. If you're open-minded, give it a try. This one person gave it a 5 out of 10, saying that it's not the book. I guess it's a fair thing to say. 1 out of 10, if you fall asleep, you will miss nothing. Great. Jonathan Glazer continues his ascent with another fabulous movie that will entirely divide its audience. Great. Long shots and long silences, 1 out of 10. Great. Interesting but hollow, 7 out of 10. So, like, that's honestly what I just said, and I never even read that. Didn't even scroll that far into these reviews, but that person still gave it a 7 out of 10, which is a pretty big rating. I would, if I were to give a movie like Uncut Gems or Good Time a rating of such, I would probably give it a 6.5 or 7 out of 10. And that goes for both movies. Maybe Uncut Gems getting like a 7.5 and Good Time getting like a 6.5. But that's still really high scores as far as my scale goes. But it's just interesting to see that this person's particular review had that. 1 out of 10. Did someone owe a favor? That's just like a marketing critic. Marketing? I don't even know what I'm saying. A mocking critic that's just like writing headlines. Anyway, I must have missed something. Tedious, bored, no story. So yeah, it's very, very polar opposite as far as the reviews go. But that seems to be everything on IMDb. But yes, I would not recommend this film as far as it goes right now, watching it once. But sometimes I do explore movies again after just watching them, so maybe I'll go watch this again at some point and give a review of the film. But that basically concludes today's episode. I am trying so hard to go back to the actual format of the show, which is to not go see films in the theater necessarily. It's very expensive to have even with like a premium membership or something to a theater or something. It's still very costly, but I do try to go see something if it piques my interest, of course. But the true form of this show was to just review three different movies from three very different time periods. So, like 2009 and 1955 and 1984 would be like three films on this list, and that could be any genre of movie and depiction of whatever, just things picked out of a list. And I kind of do want to go back to that. So, as far as seeing new films, maybe I can depart from that in these next few episodes. But I still want to see Knives Out. I've been talking about this film for several episodes, just because it's director Rian Johnson. It has literally everybody in Hollywood. I've explained this several times, but I was going to see it this week, and again, just something prohibited me from seeing it. This time it was just like people bought tickets to go see it and filled up before silly me who went to just go to the place to buy the tickets. Yeah, so there was nowhere to sit. And this film's been out since Thanksgiving. So it was very surprising that it's this far into its release. And maybe it's because it's a Tuesday and it was discounted tickets, but I just was so surprised that I was not going to be able to see it. And it's been out for so long. But yeah, this film is garnered a lot of praise, and it is going to get a sequel, apparently. I've been just hearing little odds and outs of things because I probably get news and notifications specific to me for my data, and it sees that I've tried to go purchase tickets to this film like 4 times, so it's probably just pushing all this Knives Out news to my feed. I definitely believe that. And so, yeah, basically that is something that I do want to see, and if I do see, I will review it. There's other movies I also talked about, but in previous episodes, but I never got to go see them. But that is this week's reviews. Thank you guys so much for tuning in this week. If you did, or if it's still just me, that's okay too. Please like, comment, subscribe to this page if you haven't before. You can email me with film suggestions, with how I run the show, any critiques, whatever. I will respond at filmcultpodcast@gmail.com. Please check out my video essay for the final time. I'm going to say that. Yeah, keep a lookout for new videos on this page. So thanks so much for listening. Have a great weekend, and I'll see everyone next week.